Welcome everyone! Welcome to another preview. This is MetalCanyon, and we'll be checking out a game by Artform Games called Tempest Citadel, which is a sci-fi strategy game set in the, well, sort of distant future. Or actually, now that I say sci-fi, it does have some sort of fantasy elements as well, at least in the creatures department. But anyway, that's not really the important stuff. The important stuff is to actually check out the game. Let's continue my game that I've been playing here. So I will probably be doing some comparisons with X-Com here, or also UFO Afterlight, and for several reasons that I will explain soon. So this is our little ship, this is our drop ship, which we use to drop our squad into combat missions, and this is our Citadel, the main base. Which, of course, in, you know, X-Com fashion, you can upgrade, you can build stuff in the core city and on the rings, you have defenses, and so on and so forth. So there's quite a lot of management in this game. And, you know, in X-Com games, I usually almost enjoyed management more than I did the actual combat missions, at least in the very original. Then in, you know, in the rebooted X-Com 1 and X-Com 2, you know, combat became a lot of fun. I mean, more fun than usual, so I enjoyed that. Now here, it's a little bit different. There's quite a bit of management, as I said. You've got your main base to take care of. You've got all of your squads, but you don't just, you know, deal with squads, you also deal with other people like scavengers, which you can take on your squad. You've got engineers, you've got researchers, medical personnel, and if they're not in your squad, they will be constantly working on your main base, whether it's doing research or engineering or whatever, and the same will go for your squad. If they're not working on a mission, they will be working in the base. Now, every squad member you can, of course, equip. They all have their stats, strength, dexterity, intelligence, and, you know, it looks pretty complex. It looks pretty good. They also have stats, as in their experience, or, you know, how good they are. This guy is AAA, an expert. I've actually only noticed that he's a AAA now. You know, all my soldiers are pretty good at what they do, and then you've got, you know, A's and B's and C's and D's and F's and so on and so forth. So there's a rookie here. Now the way you recruit people is actually you defrost them, pretty much. I've got quite a lot of dead people here in the morgue. This is actually not from them dying in the missions, but that's a story thing that I will leave for later, or actually I will leave you to discover it. So anyway, every now and then when you progress the story, you get more people available to be defrosted. And of course, if someone is, you know, not pulling their weight, or like this person here, for example, who has a crippled leg, and we don't have the available technology to actually, you know, alleviate that problem, we can return them to cryosleep. So they will be frozen. Let me just unpause. They will be refrozen in cryosleep, which means that, of course, we don't need to feed them. We don't need space for them to live. I do have space for them all right now. I have space for 32 and food for 60. I don't know how I have that much of a surplus, but there you go. So later on, when you have more choices of defrosting people, I kind of like that expression, defrosting people, you know, you can have quite a few, up to the limit, of course, and you expand this limit by building more quarters and more hydroponics. Now, you also have morale. This is a little bit, I suppose, like the X-Com's time limits, or chaos, whatever. What was it, riots in the first one? Actually, that's not true. I mean, morale does affect things. As you can see, Citadel repair -16 because my main base has been damaged, and unfortunately they're repairing it at an extremely slow rate. But our morale is quite high now because we have lots of food and high health, and of course because the current events have been favorable. So this can drop and affect your morale. So, you know, you've got all the other information here about how many people are in the medical stuff, how many engineers are working, and so on and so forth. So The main thing that actually affects how well you're doing is this: fate. Forecasted advance of Terran expedition. Running score of campaign success. Don't let it drop to 0. So if it does drop to 0, I am assuming you lose. Now here's the planet we've arrived on. This is far away from Earth. Far, far away from Earth. I'm not going to spoil the story for you, but suffice to say, there is quite a bit of juicy information if you go to the vault, for example. You've got a lot of stuff here to read through. And some of this stuff is quite interesting. You know, if you're into that, you don't have to read it to play the game, but it's quite interesting to read. I especially like the fact that, you know, the interstellar gift, this was public information, what happened. Some kind of an asteroid fell on Earth and brought with it fragments of some alien civilization. And then you have the false mission, which is the public mission why your ship has left Earth, and then you have the true mission, which is for your eyes only, and you know, you can actually read the truth about what is really going on and what your mission here is. And you can read about all the factions on the planet, all the artifacts, and so on and so forth. So there's quite a bit of thought has been put into this. That's quite nice. Then increasing the complexity, you've got insights, which is kind of like faction-wide, for Terrans anyway, faction-wide boosts. So every now and then you get these little stars, or insight, and you can spend them on boosting, I don't know, production, for example, from warehouses, production from auto factories, or you can boost how effective first aid is. Take it sort of like experience of your people, you know, engineers and soldiers and so on and so forth. So, or improvements to technology like kinetic weapons. Then we've got actual research, which is also quite expansive. Now, it doesn't seem like much here. It doesn't seem like much research is available, but you have to remember that each of these research items actually has a lot of different research tasks in it. So, you know, they might research something, it gets up to 100%, but it's just going to start over again because they're going to go on to the next one. Now, the way this works is a little bit different from XCOM. They are researching everything at once, unless something is logged because you lack a base upgrade or, you know, some sort. However, you can also prioritize things with a right click. For example, I want more focus to be on this, or I want the sole focus to be on this, so they will be researching it as fast as possible. Or I can also pause it or have it at low priority. Now, I kind of miss the XCOM style here, because every time you research something... Oh, excuse me, I had a hair in my mouth. Probably I'm babbling too much, opening my mouth too much. Anyway, when you research something, or, you know, in XCOM, it's always a big thing when you decide to research something, because it takes the research team's sole focus. Here it's a little bit different, as I said, and when you do research something, usually, I think it lets you know with a text message. But it's not such an event like in the like in XCOM games, because it doesn't actually give you any explanation about what you just did. So, for example, explosives. It will be armor and explosives. I don't really know what it'll be here. See, it just says researching explosives and the ETA. It doesn't actually tell you what you will be getting here. I'm assuming some kind of grenades or something. Small explosive pack, there we go. So I'm assuming this will be for a mini game after combat missions. I will show you that in a bit. But, you know, it would be nice to have a little bit more of an explanation of just what you're going for. First aid and healing. What are we doing? Repair soft tissues. This doesn't really tell me much, but, you know, having played the game a little bit, I assume it's to do with heavily heavily injured people, but not really augmentation. So anyway, every time you research something, it would be nice to have a long, juicy, you know, text about what you've just researched. For example, some flying suits I've done. The flight harness. There we go. Dual grav jets lift an individual into the sky. Enables use of soldiers in aerial intercepts and citadel defense missions. If you have spare stocks of flight equipment, it will automatically be used by your squad if the mission demands it. So, you know, there is a little bit of explanation, but most of the stuff is very, very brief. So it would be nice to have a little bit more. Some of the stuff doesn't even have a description. And for example, a lot of the stuff is a little ambiguous. The medkit, for example, offers basic first aid on the battlefield and in the landing craft. Early treatment can reduce the severity of wounds significantly. So, okay, that all makes sense, and I equip it on my peoples. For example, this guy has 1, this guy has 2 medkits. But in actual combat, there's no really, I didn't really find any way of using the first aid kits. And the only way you can heal someone is at the end of the mission if you have a medical staff on your squad. So for example, my squad does include Squirt, who is a medic, and he can alleviate some of the wounds. Now, the reason I'm spending so much time explaining this is because when you get to combat, it will all become clear. So anyway, we've gone through the cryo, we've got our actual crew, we've got our citadel, we've got our engineering, which is in a way like X-Com, you build stuff. So for example, if I want more, I don't know, machine guns, I click, you know, for every machine gun that I want to make, and it uses machinery. So there we go, that's pretty nice. And you also see how much you're getting per month of each of these things. And this works a lot like UFO Afterlight. As you travel the globe, you take these, you know, temples and refueling towers and everything in factories from the other factions. And if you're successful, they become your own and they will produce whatever per month. Now, some of these will produce stuff per month, and some of these, for example, the refueling towers will expand the area where you can go. Now, you can also recycle stuff if you don't need it anymore, and you can also upgrade your ship with, for example, turbojets and refuel cells, which allow extended mission range. Now, these actually allow me to refuel and, you know, fly a lot further. Now, every now and then, well, actually, quite often, you will get people talking to you. For example, another unit approaches an outer base. Full combat again for this gear again for this mission. You know, these are usually story missions that will allow you to progress the story, which is up here. Now, this is done quite interestingly. Not only do you have fate to worry about, like I said, 90%, and this will fall every time you catastrophically fail a mission or you retreat. If you retreat, it's 5%. If you catastrophically fail, it's 10%. The interesting thing is, if you catastrophically fail, your soldiers don't seem to die. They can be horribly wounded, but they don't seem to die. So this campaign progress here is interesting because it actually says aim to keep the white completion bar ahead of the blue time elapsed bar. So you have a graphical representation of how far you are through the campaign. So I'm about 15-20% through, and you have to keep the white bar in front of the blue bar, and if you don't, your people's morale will suffer, and I'm assuming something horrible at the end will happen if you don't actually pass it. So anyway, just like in UFO Afterlight, you select where you want to go. These missions will usually mostly appear because of storylines, but a lot of the stuff will also appear when you take refueling towers, so it will expand the area you can go to. So let me show you. For example, let's go to a lowest threat mission, which is this one, the factory. As you can see, the threat of the Volgar here is 533, and it's terrain, mountain, open, visibility 90%, and 5,100 kilometers away. So, you know, nice to have all this information. Now, it also gives us a little arrow down, which means that this is the lowest threat mission. Now, our threat is 532. The way you increase this threat number, which basically means how good your soldiers are, is by obviously leveling them up, giving them more experience, perks, and better equipment. So let's go over there. So we fly over there, refueling on the way, and then we engage. So we've got our Terrans versus Volgar. There we go. So this is how the battlefields look like. They're all 3D. You can, you know, turn around, you can scroll, you can zoom in and out. And what is this? On the right, we see Volgar forces, and this is what we're trying to take. And on the left, we see our poor little 6 guys. Now, apparently, you can increase this number via research, but right now, I'm stuck with 6. So, what you can do here is select what kind of style you want your people to fight in: cautious, balanced, or aggressive. What kind of attack you want: assault, which means favor area of effect weapons like explosions and wide area side attacks; balanced or focused, which is, you know, snipers and stuff. Then you've got target priority, which guys you want to kill. Target the biggest threat right now, and what kind of formation you want. Now, I don't really see much of a point in formation. You've even got AI movement, which I will, you know, show you in just a bit why that is. Now, as you move your squad, you get all these little circles, which means where they will go. Now, as far as I understand it, if these circles are empty like this, it means no cover. If they're full, it means full cover, and if it's half, it means half cover. So I usually just place my people in full cover somewhere. Like this, for example. And there we go. It's real-time combat. So I'm a little bit biased here. Oh dear. I'm a little bit biased here because I really like turn-based combat. I'm pausing every now and then to see how my people are doing and whether we're doing good here. Yeah, that was pretty good. Our squad has destroyed all resistance. Now we go to the battle report, and we can see that Rook here has been wounded. But because we have 1 medic in our group, I can actually decide to heal him. Now, usually, you know, you might have more people hurt, so you'll have to decide who to help. Usually you want to help people who would otherwise be either dead, you know, fatally wounded, or critically injured, so they would have crippling injuries. But here, I only have 1 choice, so that's pretty good. Now, this is the minigame that happens after most combat missions. You actually explore the area underground, and I for some reason, this thing is so simple, but I really enjoy it. You've got 3 hours, 11 minutes to finish this before some kind of a storm arrives. And for some reason, you know, storms arrive every time you go through these underground areas. So you explore it by clicking on it, and unfortunately there was nothing in here. Now these are locked, and I have a choice of using a lockpick, which was successful, which is, you know, only 5 minutes. Over here on the right you can see, or explosive, 2 minutes, but I don't have any, or using drills, which is 26 minutes. So, you know, lockpicking usually the best idea if you can actually do it. So here we found some stuff, which is biolab. We got 19 biotech. So you don't have to hurry. At first I thought you had to click as fast as possible through everything, but time only, you know, is deducted as you do stuff. So for example, like this, we've got a factory, we've got some electronics, we've got another factory, and then we'll just try to get through here. Nice. I actually managed to go through. Wow, all of these are empty, really. Medical stuff, engineering stuff, and there we go. I'm already out of time, unfortunately. So, you know, you have to decide where you want to go, but it's mostly random, really. You know, there's not a lot of decisions to be made here. With rubble and with mechanical locks and stuff, yes, but mostly otherwise, I usually just like to get the rectangular rooms because it means that it's an actual, you know, building of some sort in there. So, yes, I am a little bit biased because I very much prefer turn-based combat. So now we've taken this thing. Now I will go for another one for here, which has creatures, 592 threat. Now, let me just wait for my guy to recover from the wounds. They already have, apparently. Yeah. Okay, so let's go for another mission. So missions are extremely quick. Most of the missions will take about a minute to finish. It's nowhere near like UFO Afterlight or X-Com, where, you know, missions can take like half an hour even sometimes. Here it's very quick, and it's over with, well, in just a few moments. So let's engage these creatures. These guys have a higher threat than we do, but with some kiting, that should be fine. And these Scourges and Leviathans usually don't really seem to be much of a threat. Now, the thing I wanted to say about turn-based stuff and being my favorite, that's true. However, looking at this, you know, in an objective manner, I just think it's unfortunately a huge lost potential here. Because, let me explain, even if you do prefer real-time strategy with a pause feature, come on, shoot him. So now I have to actually move because these guys, come on. See, that's another problem. I'm telling my people to move and they're not really doing much.
Copy that.
So with things like this, it's easy to just kite them. But a lot of the times, you know, you will say, oh, why are you not moving? You tell your people to move, there's a rocket coming their way, and they just refuse to move for some reason. I don't really know why, but there you go. And like I said, I think it's a huge missed opportunity. This could have been an amazing turn-based experience, and, well, at least for me, much more enjoyable anyway. But unfortunately, they went the real-time strategy. Now, I say unfortunately because I don't mind real-time strategies, but in this case, it's just a very odd situation. You've got all these stats. You've got strength, dexterity, intelligence. You've got levels. You've got, you know, whether they're a soldier or whether they're a scavenger, an engineer. You've got all this equipment to, you know, to the machine guns, rifles, radios, poison darts, and so on and so forth. And none of it really seems to make any, how should I say, effect. It does have an effect, obviously. The effect is you increase your threat level. However, it doesn't actually feel like you're doing anything meaningful doing that. You know, when I first got armor for these guys, I was like, yeah, now we're really in business. And I got them, you know, the crappy armor. But unfortunately, it didn't really feel any different on the battlefield, or in X-Com and even in UFO Afterlight, for example. There was a big change when you went from a soldier with 5 health and put armor on them, and you suddenly had a soldier with, I don't know, 7 or 8 health. You know, it was a small change, but it was a big change in a way, because suddenly you couldn't be one-shotted anymore, unless you were extremely unlucky. But here, it's just threat. It's just threat that's a problem. Now, these guys are 604, and they are the Order, which is really bad. Now, I might get my arse kicked here, but let's go there anyway. So, you know, that's the main problem. It doesn't feel satisfying to do these combat missions. The battlefields are very small, the units move very fast, so there's not a lot of stuff you can do. Most of the time, you will be in a map like this. You have to find full cover like this and simply stay there. And if there are rocket launchers or something involved, well, too bad to be you. And it's usually very difficult to tell your units to do anything. For example, now that they're firing, if you tell them to move somewhere, they will a lot of the times simply refuse to do so for some reason.
Engaging.
And it took me a while to actually realize I needed to middle click to have them stay in a place. Otherwise, they just, you know, if I click like this, okay, they're not going to move this time. But if I move like this, they sometimes just seem to move in random directions for some reason. Yeah. And, oh, they've outmaneuvered us, Captain. While we were dealing with the attack on one base, a separate Orderian unit took control of another on the opposite side of our territory. I can't help but think I've been playing into their hands. Our sensors didn't even detect the secondary unit until it was too late. They must have let us see them during the last 2 attacks. They've been toying with us. I can't blame this one on Lady Luck. I'm sorry, Captain. I underestimated them. Alright. So, we've got a new cryo cluster online, which means more people we can actually unfreeze now. But I want to show you a little bit more about combat, because I really think it's this game's Achilles heel. So let's go over there. Oh, shouldn't have done this, because my people... No, they're not hurt anymore, so that's fine. So we've got the Severed here. I think these guys are like mechanical guys. Yeah. Cyborgs. you know, there's just not a lot of strategy involved here, it seems. And when you upgrade stuff, like I said, it doesn't feel like an achievement. It just feels, oh, I've increased the number, and I can, you know, I've increased my threat number to 600. Now I can go try and kill those guys at 620 or something. I'm sure, you know, the developer and possibly even some players will tell us, will tell me that, oh, but, you know, each of these things works like this, increases this mechanic, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure it does. So here we go. Those guys are just absolutely murdering my people, and my people are not really doing much here. There's a rocket. Oh, nice. See, now I've told them to actually go into cover, but they're refusing. Come on, go into cover! So now this was a, you know, catastrophic fail. Our soldiers have suffered a massive defeat, and they're actually still alive, but our fate has decreased? Well, I suppose it has increased in the meantime. And now it has decreased. So that's my biggest problem with this game. Combat feels absolutely unsatisfying. The squads are fairly difficult to actually move. It doesn't feel like they're obeying your, you know, orders much when they're in actual combat. You cannot... I didn't find a way to actually specifically target targets, you know. You can only tell them to target the, I don't know, strongest or weakest and so on and so forth, but that doesn't really help me. And getting new equipment for them is just not a satisfying experience, and much less so actually fighting. And it doesn't help that, you know, each mission is, well, mostly a minute long. Actually, maybe that's a good thing, because otherwise, you know, I would probably pull my hair out. So unfortunately, a lot of lost potential here, I would say. And, well, that's that, really. I mean, I think this game could be a lot of fun, were combat different. But right now, like I said, this is just not doing it for me. And yes, you can do a lot of stuff to alleviate some of the problems. For example, the order, I would need to actually go into my squads, loadouts. I don't have any loadouts, but I would need to create squads for each of the factions. So for example, the Volgar are numerous, but they have mostly, you know, not such great weapons and technology, while the Order is the other way around. They're few and far in between, and they have very powerful weaponry, so it needs some sort of focused weapons for them, and, you know, more like shotguns and machine guns for the Volgar. But it's just, you know, it doesn't really give me any motivation to do that when the combat is, well, just so boring and poor. It really doesn't. So basically, the only thing you're doing here in the management state of things is making sure that your people have enough food and quarters. You're researching whatever you want to. You're creating new upgrades for your ship and the squad. And you're taking stuff out. And it all serves to increase your threat level. So a number. And basically, the number is what denotes how successful you're going to be in a fight. So as you could see there, I was completely obliterated despite the fact that their threat wasn't that much higher than ours. But, you know, it doesn't feel like I'm doing any tactics. It doesn't feel like it is up to me to decide the outcome of the combat. I place them somewhere, I give them the equipment, and, well, that's that. I twiddle my fingers and hope for the best. There are some, you know, limited things when in missions you can sometimes kite some of the stuff, which has like slow fireballs or something coming towards you, so you can keep moving your soldiers to try and avoid those, and it works to a certain extent, but a lot of the times some soldiers also get bugged out or something and just refuse to move and get, you know, killed outright. So I don't know. I feel bad for saying this, because otherwise the game looks pretty bad. Everything works. I love management stuff in games like these, but it's just not as satisfying when the combat side is so weak. So yeah, unfortunately, there you go. This is more alike to UFO Afterlight than it is to X-Com, and even UFO Afterlight, I think, had more meaningful combat, even though it was real time there. But you could at least definitely tell your people what to do there, even though, you know, they were a bit slow to respond to your stuff. Here, it's even less so, and less satisfying, unfortunately. So, there you go. That was Tempest Citadel by Artform Games. I hope you've enjoyed the preview, and yeah, I hope you'll check out the other videos as well. Have a good one. Bye-bye.